it's not an easy decision. Being a government scholar, when the trajectory is already there, and next year is meant to be my promotion year, right? If I continue to do very well in the work, knowing to take a step back and ask for no pay leave, that wasn't easy for someone who is very ambitious in my career.
The most important symptom you should look at is you lose your sense of self and you lose your sense of confidence, and I think that's what most people should be concerned about.
Why do stressed women break down while stressed men shut down? Why do daughters feel guilty for resting while sons feel guilty for feeling? Caregiver stress hits differently, and today we're talking about the emotional split no one teaches us how to navigate. Joining me is Angela Tan, founder of Almost Peaceful, a mindfulness-based coach transforming workplace culture and relationships. As the youngest child, Angela became the primary caregiver for both her parents as they battled cancer, guiding them through their final journey and facing immense loss when she was only 25 and then again at 30. We also have James Leong, founder of Listen Without Prejudice, a counselor dedicated to building a grief-literate Singapore. James is also the man behind award-winning podcast, This Is What Caregiver Stress Feels Like. Together, we are unpacking how men and women express caregiver stress differently. The expectations, the emotional patterns, and what actually helps us understand each other better. Speaking about understanding each other better, I would like to understand, first of all, from Angela, how has your caregiving journey been like?
Thanks for asking. Caregiving has been the last 6 years since my father passed away 6 years ago, and recently my mom passing away from cancer. It has been different. No amount of loss can prepare you for that, the grief, the feelings that come with it. So I would say it has been very complicated. At times it can feel quite lonely, but knowing that there's a community of support out there for me, knowing that I have different tools to recharge myself, to feel better, to feel stronger, I think that's something that has been a part of the caregiving journey as well.
And maybe from a counselor standpoint, how would you say the caregiving journey is?
The narrative of the caregiving journey in Singapore has been very much based on filial piety and how our parents have taken care of us, and now it's our turn to take care of them. But that's just the narrative that has been fed to us. However, the reality is that the caregiving journey is a lot more complicated than that narrative. So what I mean by that is that this social compact between parents and child, there's more to that because we are looking at unhealthy family dynamics, which happens in all families. We're also looking at the component of grief, which was Angela talked about, as well as losing your sense of identity. And also I want to say that a lot of the narrative about caregiving has been touching on the importance of self-care. I would like to add that self-care is a lot more than going for parks and going for massages. It's also about drawing your boundaries and saying no. And in the context of the filial piety society like Singapore, saying no can be difficult.
I like that you mentioned about the tools and going to the park and self-care and everything, and that is something we will touch on later as tools for caregiver stress. But what does caregiver stress look and feel like for you, Angela?
The stress is the narrative that you have to have everything put together for everyone, right? Whether is it at work, you have to be the best team player, whether is it at home, being the best daughter for my mom, whether is it for relationship, being the best wife for my husband. So every part of your life requires you to show up at 100%. And that is stressful, right? Because at one time, we can only prioritize one thing at a time. So when we prioritize something, we have to sacrifice and maybe tune down on something. So that to me is the stressful part, because you have to look that you get it all together for everyone, but truth is it's not, right? So how do you communicate that part of you?
Sounds like you're talking about expectations. So how have you been managing those expectations in your different roles?
Yeah. So for career-wise, I decided to take a no pay leave when my mom was going through a really painful period where she was in and out of hospital 6 times in 2 weeks. So that was when I sat down with my bosses then. I told them that it's not an easy decision. Being a government scholar, when the trajectory is already there, and next year is meant to be my promotion year, right? If I continue to do very well in the work, knowing to take a step back and ask for no pay leave, that wasn't easy for someone who is very ambitious in my career.
Yeah.
But I knew at that point of time, what I wanted to prioritize was my mom, the time with my mom, and also helping her recover from pain. So I took permission. I gave permission to myself to ask for no pay leave from work.
Would you say one of the stresses for caregivers, right, would be the workplace situation, because they either have to take no pay leave or they have to sacrifice their career? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I just want to say something about Angela. First of all, I think thank you for being so brave to choose that path. I think really what you mean by a complicated journey is the struggle to choose what's important to you, choosing your values, right? So as you were doing well in your work, and from what I hear, the values that society and your family and even yourself place on you yourself is that I need to be well, I need to do well because I've been a scholar. And those were the values that you believed in, and all your decisions were aligned to those values. But many a time, life throws you a boomerang, right? And it goes the other way, and then you suddenly realize, what am I living for? Are there other values I should be aligned to? So I would say that the caregiving journey is very unexpected because all your life you have identified yourself with being a good worker, a good colleague, maybe a good husband or a good daughter, and then suddenly your loved one or someone close to you falls ill, and then your identity completely changes. And your worldview, your whole belief system changes. And you have to re-look at yourself and take on a new identity as a caregiver. I think for Angela, for you to quit your job and to take on a new identity must have been quite a scary decision for you. But however, I think it was very clear in your head and your heart that it was the right thing to do. But sadly, not everyone has that clarity. They face pressures and stresses from society. No, you can't quit your job. You have to continue to get that promotion. But somehow you found that clarity. But with most people, that clarity doesn't come easy to them.
So that could be also a reason for stress because they are so conflicted. It's like
Exactly.
internal turmoil. Who do I prioritize? And so what kinds of other signs and symptoms do you see manifest, as caregiver stress?
Well, first of all, you lose your sleep.
Yeah.
Clearly, you suffer from insomnia, and then you start losing focus at work. You start forgetting things quite easily. But I think on a deeper level, I think the most important symptom you should look at is you lose your sense of self and you lose your sense of confidence. And I think that's what most people should be concerned about. And when you lose your sense of self, you start losing your own identity. And then from then on, you start making decisions that are not aligned to your values because your sense of self has kind of diminished. And that's something to be careful about.
And also the sense of joy. What used to give you joy in the past no longer give you joy. So when it comes to exercising, going for Muay Thai, things that used to recharge me, suddenly doing it doesn't give me joy anymore. So that's when I know that actually underlying it, there's more stress, there's more tension.
That sounds also like you are going in the territory of caregiver burnout. Do you think that's the case for like the losing joy thing?
I would say is the lack of permission for myself to be happy. So I never feel burnt out as a caregiver because I feel it's an honor to be able to take care of my parents. So I never feel the burnt out part. What I feel is I'm very critical of myself. I didn't allow myself to be happy. Why do I get to be happy when my mom is lying in pain in the bed? Yeah, I just felt that was very selfish. But the moment I was able to see that actually my mom would also want me to be happy, I gave myself permission to feel joy again. So that was when my heart opened up and I was like, the permission is so important.
I hear that you must be very close to your mom.
Yes.
Yeah, I can tell. Sometimes when we are too close to someone, there's a form of attachment. And that sort of attachment can be a form of unhealthy attachment. In the case of you, Angela, if my mom is sick, I can't be having a good time. Yeah, and that could be a sign of unhealthy attachment. But somehow you manage to detach from that and say that, oh, would my mom want me to be unhappy? Right? How did you get to that thinking?
After she passed away, I just felt very lost and empty. And I just felt like, as a mindfulness practitioner myself, what are some ways I can help myself? So I go back to Muay Thai, go back to exercise, but these are just surface level things. The moment I dig deeper and realize, it is the permission, it's the mindset shift.
Mhm.
Giving myself the permission. That moment, my mindset shifted.
Mm.
Instead of saying that I'm not allowed to be happy after she passed away, I just tell myself, my mom wanted me to be happy as well.
Yeah. And I think this is a very good case of self-care.
Mm.
Self-care is a lot more than going for walks. It's actually giving yourself permission
Yes.
to say no and to say yes. Whatever the answer is, to give yourself permission to love yourself.
Mm.
As much as you love your mom, I think she would have wanted you to love yourself too. And that's something as caregivers we tend to forget, that when we are too attached to the people we care for, we lose our sense of self. That's what I said back earlier, right? Once you lose your sense of self, you're confident, that's when things start to go downhill. And that's something to be careful about.
And I think she also pointed out something, and you have also correctly pointed out, it's not really one or the other. Like you can have both at the same time sometimes. It's not like mom is suffering, so I can't be happy. It's that, okay, mom is suffering, but then I can also still be happy and still continue the stuff that I want to do. Yeah, so in terms of, because I understand that you're also, your brother is also involved in the caregiving as well. So what kinds of differences did you observe in terms of how you guys manage the stress? Or did it get to the point where only you feel the stress, but then maybe your brother is handling it very well or seemingly handling it well?
That's a good one. So in my day work now, I started a company where I help couples to communicate better, to relate to each other better, to connect to each other better. And I see that during my relationship workshop, men and women, they behave very differently. Men like to solve problems.
Yep.
Women like to feel connected. Hear me first before solving problem. Whereas guys like, what's the problem? What's the tactical thing to solve it? I see that in my own caregiver journey as well, as a younger sister. And my brother, my brother will always be, okay, this is the schedule for the Western medicine. This is what the TCM has said for mommy, right? So it's always very tactical. It's always for the care plan. Whereas for me, it's always checking in on him, like, so how are you feeling today? Like the PET scan result is out. How are you feeling? And my brother, he tends to focus more on the solution, the next step forward, and avoid knowing how he's feeling. Towards the end, it was quite bad. 3 days before my mom passed away, he broke down. He couldn't accept that the thing is incoming. So I being trained in mindfulness as well. So I told my brother at the hospital, I said, you're not functioning well. Maybe you should leave the hospital and go to the East Coast Park, go to the nature, detach yourself for 4 hours, for a few hours, and process everything, right? Because it's coming, right? The death of my mom is coming. So I had to step in now and tell him that it's not about the care plan now, right? It's about caring for yourself first.
Yes.
Yeah.
Would you say that you feel that maybe perhaps men might be like more focused on the next step and next step and next step, and then they push their emotions all the way to the back, or they push their emotions all the way till they cannot take it anymore and it just overspills?
I have a different view about how the different genders address their emotions. In the case of the caregiving experience, right, I think it's less about male or female solutions, finding and connection, than it is about anxiety. It's really an issue about anxiety. So in some cases, I've seen the sister caregiver who can sometimes be a bit more solution focused than a brother who is more connecting. And wait a minute, what's going on here? Because the sister is the female and the brother is a male, right? But in this case, it was the sister who had a more anxious kind of character. And the brother was more calm, and that made him more connected. So yes, in general, I do agree that men are more solution finding, women are more connective. But in the caregiver experience, you're dealing with a lot of uncertainties. Every single day is uncertainty. In your case, Angela, you don't know when your mother's going to go. It sounds like at that time she was terminally ill anytime. Yeah. So I would imagine your brother's anxiety was building up. And the more anxiety that builds up, the more he tries to fix things, doesn't he? Yeah. So actually, when you see people fixing things, they are actually come to the point where they're over functioning. So to address your question about what should we be looking out for, not only should we be looking out for the loss of our sense of self, we should also be looking out for the sense of over functioning. When we try to overdo things, because that is a clear sign of anxiety.
But what would you say is the telltale sign of that over-functioning? Because it could just be that the person is highly productive, or getting a lot of stuff done,
Well,
or
maybe we should ask Angela. I mean, when you look at your brother, I mean, you know your brother, I
Yeah.
would like to assume.
Yeah.
Okay, there was a difference between him before your mother fell ill when he was getting things done versus when your mother fell ill. Did you see a difference?
Yeah, definitely. The telltale sign would be someone that the shift, right, between just doing one thing a day versus doing 6, 7 things a day, right? Ultra productive. And that is not normal, right? That's not normal. It's just starting to show that the awareness, the attention, you're just trying to distract yourself from feeling certain things
Exactly.
and just focusing on getting it done.
So you know your brother truly quite well.
Yeah, we're very close.
I want to say one thing also. I've seen in families where you're having a simple dinner, okay, and there's a lot of tension in the dinner room among the family members. You know someone's over functioning and not trying to be filial when she or he starts people pleasing, over people pleasing to the point that it actually becomes a bit too much. And then he asks themselves, Mom, is the food okay? Mom, do you want the fork closer to you? Mom, do you need the soya sauce? I'll put it over to you. Mom, the next. So you can see how I'm over functioning. I'm not trying to make your dinner pleasant. So after a while, that mother will feel suffocated. But right now, the issue is why is that sibling doing all these things for the mother? Is she over functioning or is she just being a good daughter? I think the answer is quite clear. And if the question is indeed over functioning, then you got to ask what's going on here. Is there a sense of anxiety that's driving this over functioning behavior? Yeah.
And speaking more about like the different genders, how do you think the opposite gender can understand your caregiver stress better?
I think giving space to listen to us and also asking us a simple question, right? What's the emotion to describe how you're feeling today? So asking that question allow us a space to sit down and think like, today has been a lot up and down. What's the primary emotion? And articulating that makes us feel better. Yeah.
So being able to express yourself and share.
Yes.
Right.
In my perspective of anxiety, I think either gender, it doesn't matter so much. I think, first of all, we got to check our anxiety levels first. First and foremost, check your anxiety levels before you interact with a caregiver. So if I'm your brother and I had a bad day and my mom just passed away and I'm like over functioning, I don't want to go and ask how my sister is doing. Because you're not going to benefit from that. So I would have to check in on my anxiety. How am I doing today? How's my anxiety level? If it's like number 9, I don't think I want to talk to you or anyone for that matter. Yeah. So check your anxiety level and then ask yourself, if I want to check in on that caregiver, who am I doing it for? Am I checking in for myself to make myself feel better? Or am I checking in because I really want to make you feel better? And it's all about you, not about me.
Yeah, it reminds me of the framework of the right speech. So in relationship as well, we also talk about the framework of the right speech. So is it timely? Is this question or this conversation timely? Is it beneficial for the person? And is it truthful, right? So having this helps you to decide when to approach the person to check in.
Because most of the time, if you are anxious, everything is going to be about you reducing your anxiety. It's going to be nothing about that caregiver.
And I want to go back to the point about you detaching yourself or telling your brother to detach. So what is the thing that's running through your head when you think of that? Because I think you also mentioned about the happiness and how you wanted to, not be so tied up with being unhappy, right? So about this detachment thing, why did you come up with that concept?
So my brother all along has been very strong in the last 2.5 years of caregiving journey together with me for my mom. He has never cried. That day, he cried from morning, and then when I met him for lunch, he was crying at Toast Box. To me, that was a sign that it's the tip of everything, tip of anxiety, tip of negative feelings. And the sense of loss is like so much, right? Because for me, I've always been preparing for myself for this moment. It is sad, I cry a lot, but I've always been like periodically preparing myself for the loss. For my brother, that day was the day where he broke down. So that was when I realized that it's no longer about being by my mom's side. It's about being with himself, checking in on where, just giving himself space and physically being away from the hospital setting, which he has always been there for the last 2.5 years, right? Just going in and out. That same environment, the stress, the anxiety that is triggering. So to me, it's always about giving oneself and giving the caregiver space So I know he likes East Coast Park, so I told him to go East Coast Park, just see the sea, watch people cycle.
And he did that.
Yes.
I see this quite a lot, not only in the caregiver space, but in any situation where there's stress. You need to be strong. Be strong. And then your question is, what does strength mean? Who are you being strong for? Okay. So in this case, I would like to say, what then is weak? Is weak being available to your emotions? So there's a question I think we need to ask ourselves. What does really strong mean when you're faced with a stressful situation? This is something that I feel very strongly about, especially men. When we are strong, does it mean that we hide our emotions? Because in the case of your brother, he was strong throughout until he couldn't be strong anymore. Yeah. So in your case, what I'm hearing is that you were preparing for it throughout the journey. And I have to say the caregiving journey is also very much about grieving. Yeah. So it sounds like you were actually grieving already, even before your mother died. You said you were preparing, you were grieving. But it also sounds like your brother wasn't really grieving even at all, because he was functioning, over-functioning every single step of the way, because he had to be strong. Yeah. So this is a message from a guy to other guys out there, if you're watching this. There's nothing weak about being strong. Because when you are strong and you're available to your emotions, that's actually courage, not weakness. And it's only about who you choose to be strong with your emotions too. That's when it makes a difference.
When you mentioned that, it makes me think also about how your brother could be holding on to hope versus you being more realistic, practical. Do you sense that? Or I mean, definitely it seems like you agree, but what about James? Do you think
I don't know. I don't know your brother, so I can't say whether he was holding on to hope or he was just not being available to his emotions, and I don't know.
It's the hope part. Yeah. It's hoping for the miracle.
And how can one be more available to their emotions since you've mentioned that?
I think you need to be brave. There's no other way to be really courageous and be available to your emotions. That emotions are a part of our lives. You look at COVID-19. All of us were anxious for like 3 years, right? We were available to all those emotions, maybe because we had nowhere to go. But we were kind of forced to be available to our emotions. I think in the case of Angela, I like to think that you were available to your emotions throughout. And that kind of helped you grieve better when your mom actually passed away. And I think that's one of the benefits of being available. It helps you recover and helps you be more connected to yourself, because your emotions are also a part of yourself. So when you detach from your emotions and you're not available to your emotions, you're actually disconnecting to yourself as well.
So there's two parts to this, right? One is about the courage to be aware and to face the discomfort, right? To face it head on. So that's the courage part. The second is reducing the distraction, because a lot of time we can just be doom scrolling, watching Netflix, because that numbs the pain. So if you can reduce that distraction, and that helps to increase the self-awareness.
And this distraction thing also comes from overfunctioning. Overfunctioning is also a sense of distraction from your numbing of your emotions as well.
Yes.
That also sounds like a concept I read up also about maladaptive coping mechanisms, like the not very healthy coping mechanisms. So you were mentioning that you were preparing yourself throughout the journey. So what would you say was your preparation?
Quite a few. One is having a community of support for myself. So knowing who I want to talk to, knowing who I want to keep in my inner circle. So that's important. So for me, I go to the gym, I go to practice my faith. So having this support system is important. Those who encourage you and those who give you space, right? Not always often checking in on you, but just giving you space to work out, giving you space to practice your faith. So that's one, community of support. The second is I always believe, because I'm a public servant, right? I was a public servant. I always believe during peacetime, we prepare for war. And to me, as a caregiver, it's about during peacetime, I prepare my resilience. I prepare my self-awareness, right? So my daily practice is meditation. It could be 10 minutes, could be 5 minutes, or even just a short 3 breath. So practicing present moment awareness helped me to sit with the discomfort. Not every day sit is going to be peaceful, it's going to be happy. someday the seed is a lot of anxiety, someday it's a lot of stress, a lot of planning, and it's okay, lor. Just sit with it, right? The more we learn to sit with the present moment, the more we accept our feelings. So all this community of support, your daily practice, it prepares my resilience and my heart so that any challenge that I meet, whether it's a caregiver, whether it's a career, help me to bounce back to the middle faster.
Like a quicker recovery.
Yes.
What would you say is the recovery plan as well? You know, if caregivers listening to this are
What
overwhelmed.
does recovery look like to you, right? That's a big question. What does actually caregiver recovery looks like? I don't think many people have the answer. So even before we get to the recovery, let's look at the coping first. Okay. I think we also not only need to have the right support group, I think we also need to give ourselves permission to be down. I think there are days where we can say, oh, I don't have any plans even in peace times. I think we should give ourselves permission to feel we don't have a plan today. I don't feel like having any plan. I don't want a plan. I think that's also okay. And then there's a part of self-care we should also be focusing on, that we don't have to be perfect all the time. We don't even need to be perfect 75% of the time. Can we be kind to yourself? Can we practice better self-care and be more forgiving of a situation that we really don't have control over?
I think it's about managing a lot of uncertainty, like what you mentioned. So that also leads me to think of the expectations bit. Like once you reduce expectations on yourself to perform in a certain capacity, that would also increase your happiness level. I think that's a happiness formula thing, but from a book previously that I read. Yeah. So what is one thing people often do when trying to help that you think makes caregivers feel worse? Maybe friends around you are like trying to help, and then it's like, oh, too much.
I have one. I think of it also find it funny. Okay, but no offense to the caring friends that said this.
Still be caring.
I can lend you a pair of listening ear. Because to me, right, I don't want to talk about it yet. Right, I'm someone who is hyper independent since young, and now I'm learning not to be hyper independent, right? So learn to depend on other people at times. And I needed space to know what I'm feeling, to face what I'm feeling, and then to kind of like regulate myself first. So sharing is not my immediate approach. And yeah, there are very, very caring friends who say like, yeah, I'm here if you need a listening pair of ears. Then I just feel like, wow, like, it's not where what I need.
But would you say at different stages of that process, maybe once you are already more like coming to terms with it, then you would be
Sure.
available to express. Is that the situation?
I feel maybe the part of me didn't want to burden my friend. If I tell them how I'm feeling, then I feel like they always have to say, oh, what should I say now, right? How do I make her feel better? To me, in my personal journey as well, I would recommend going for therapy. So for me, after going through the death of my mom, I went through a period where like I'm not sure if there's this binary thinking within me now. So I went to seek help. I went to talk to a therapy, and I feel like having professional support is very important. It's not about making me feel good, but it's about not burdening my friend now. Yeah, I have this framework that I just feel like, oh, I'm burdening my friend. Yeah.
How do you feel when when caregivers feel that when they share something or, when they reach out, they are a burden and then it holds them back sometimes that they don't want to reach out?
Okay, I don't think caregivers are a burden, period.
I love that.
Because I think they are taking on enough burdens already. So I'm sorry you felt that you were a burden to your friends, but you are not a burden to your friends. However, what I do think is a burden are sometimes the friends themselves. And how are they a burden? I come back to the issue of anxiety. Okay, many people, like you said, cannot sit in the discomfort because they are really too anxious. And Singapore is an anxious nation. That's why we are called a kiasu nation, right? Kia as in afraid, right? So because we are anxious and because we are afraid, and most of the time in the caregiving space, when our friend is going through, a good friend like such as Angela is going through a caregiver stress, we don't know when your mom is passing on. The anxiety you face is not only yours, it's also the friend. It's your friend. I'm going to ask Angela, how are you feeling? There's also anxiety on my level. Will I say the right thing? Will I say the wrong thing? What if Angela's mom has already passed on? Should I not be asking a question? What if I were, as a friend, to Angela say, I'm going to be okay with this discomfort. I'm going to be managing my anxiety. Yes, the anxiety is here. I'm just going to acknowledge it. because we are good friends, I'm just going to push it aside and be brave and sit in the discomfort of the anxiety and ask Angela anyway. So I'm giving her my full attendance. So it's not about me, not about anxiety anymore, because I acknowledged it and pushed it aside. It's going to be about you. And you won't feel that burden anymore because I sincerely, truly want to find out how you are doing. There's no anxiety. There is, but it's not going to get in the way of me trying to connect with you. However, most people are too anxious. They can't deal with the uncertainty, not just about caregivers, but anything in life. Singaporeans are very anxious. So what happens is that even when you talk to me about your problems, let's say it can be anything, your boyfriend problems, your financial problems, your problem might become so big, I might react with anxiety, so much so that I will say something insensitive to you, not because I want to hurt you, but because your story makes me too uncomfortable that I don't have a solution to it. That's the anxiety we're talking about.
And speaking about solutions, I know probably each to their own, right? Like for caregiver stress. But what works best for you?
I think the most effective is still the daily checking in on myself. Like today, what's my anxiety level? And after that, it's like what is causing this anxiety, right? Sometimes it's the career piece where I'm not sure, because my career requires my business require me to show up in social media. So which part of me do I show up for social media, right? When I'm grieving, do I show that part as well? And which eventually I decided to. I think don't always have to be happy lah in social media, right? So I show up that part. So to me, the how I cope is like checking in, how am I feeling, and what is causing that feeling, right? If it's happiness, and what is causing that happiness? Can I replicate more conditions to feel that joy, that happiness?
Okay. So like whatever works, then you rinse and repeat. Amazing. And what about for James? Like what is one tip or one hack, for people, caregivers, if they're facing not just stress, but maybe anxiety, like what you mentioned?
I think the missing component in the caregiver narrative is the grief component, where we're actually grieving, and no one talks about the grief that caregivers face. Why? Because most people associate grief with funerals and death. Yes, our loved ones, our patients might eventually die, or we all will eventually die. But we also grieve when that person we are caring for is no more the same. And that applies to all caregivers. If we don't recognize that it is grief, we're going to be misunderstood and maybe even cast further into isolation. Let me give you one quick example. I know of a caregiver who was facing his mom, who he loves very much. She had a mental health breakdown, and she was no more the same mother to him anymore. She was healthy, she could still do things, but because of her depression and anxiety, she just was different. And my friend, the son, couldn't handle it. So he started becoming very resentful to his mom, and he started becoming very harsh towards her. Now, to the rest of the world and to the family, they all thought the son was being difficult. What's wrong with you? She's your mother. Why are you talking to your mom like that? Okay. Now, with some counseling, this son eventually realized that it was not that he was being disrespectful to his mom, but he was grieving. He was grieving that his mom was no more the same person. And the grieving, the situation of his mom had led him to feelings of anger and resentment. So grieving is not just about sitting quietly in a corner shedding tears, but grieving and the situation of grief can also cause anger and resentment. Many people don't know this. And if we don't become more grief literate, we're going to be living with caregivers who are going to be more isolated, more alone, and perhaps we're going to looking at a looming mental health crisis among the caregiver community.
I can see that it manifests in so many different emotions that we sometimes are unable to comprehend as well. So one last question for Angela. If you could speak to your past self at the beginning of your caregiving journey, what would you say?
That it's okay not to have everything figured out. It's okay not to be perfect. It's okay not to be everything for everyone all at once. Take time for yourself. The journey is going to be very messy. Grief's going to hit hard. No matter how much you prepare for yourself, it's going to hurt. So give yourself permission to cry, to feel, and to heal.
Any final words from James?
Yes to everything that Angela said. But we are looking at a fast-aging society in Singapore, and there are going to be more caregivers transforming to caregivers suddenly overnight.
Yes.
My tip would be to seek help. we are not supposed to do this alone. I know in the Singapore society, seeking help makes you weak, but I think not seeking help and trying to be strong makes you weaker.
So it's also to recognize that you're not a burden, right? I think that's also one of the...
Your caregivers are never a burden. We feel like a burden because I don't know why. Because we are doing the best we can. Why should we feel like we are a burden?
Yes.
Maybe what's really a burden is how we are not getting the support we want.
Yeah, I think that beautiful message to your past self was very was really heartwarming. And as we round off, I'd like to bring things back to the present. So what are you guys working on now, and what would you like to share with everyone who's watching this?
Yeah, I think life is too short for bad relationships, which is why I like to replicate the love that my late father and my late mother have. Very loving relationship between the husband and wife. And now I'm working on helping couples connect better by turning tough conversation into meaningful connection. So this is where Almost Peaceful we run relationship workshop, as well as using board game as a way to connect with each other more deeply. So this is something I'm working on, as well as helping students to emotionally regulate themselves, being better with emotional health, literacy, and self-leadership.
All the literacy, right? Emotional side. And then for you, it would be the grief literate society.
Yeah. So what I want to do is I want to transform Singapore into a grief literate society. Maybe we should talk, yeah? How we should really inform people, not just caregivers, but across the generations that we lose everything every day. Singapore is a society where we know how to acquire, we know how to build, we know how to accumulate. You hear this every year in the National Day speech, but the truth is that we're going to start losing things because no one lives forever. So I think we know how to acquire, but do we know how to lose? So my job right now is to get people to understand what is loss, what is grief. And the second thing I'm doing is that I'm going to be going to season 2 of my Caregiver podcast. It's called This Is What Caregiver Stress Feels Like. And I'll be focusing on the educated Singapore English-speaking woman who suddenly transitions to caregiver overnight. And I'm going to try and unpack some of the journey that he or she faces.
Thank you so much, Angela and James. And thank you for joining us in this conversation. I hope today's discussion helps you feel a little more seen, understood, and a lot less alone in your journey. Finally, I'd be hosting a communication workshop for youth caregivers at SCAPE on 13 February 2026, Friday evening. The registration form will be in the description box below, and more details will be released on this channel as well. See you next time, and take care.
How does it feel when you're watching it?
Yeah, it feels good. I'm concentrating again.
Oh, okay, that's a good sign.